Good evening, everyone, on another warm December day when fog covered not only the tops of skyscrapers but also Minnesota roads, triggering a tragedy near Fairfax. And there's more dense fog on the way. That story is part of NewsNight Minnesota next.
From Twin Cities Public Television, this is NewsNight Minnesota, a statewide program of news, analysis, and commentary.
Good evening again and welcome to NewsNight Minnesota.
Good evening, everyone. Glad you could join us tonight. Well, while school districts look for ways to save money, there's one part of the budget that many experts want to put more resources into. That area is technology. Educators say that computers and other technology are becoming as important in the classroom as books. But because it's so expensive, schools have tried to be very careful about how they spend their technology dollars. Jim Bickle reports on how a couple of school districts are using technology now and planning for the future.
I'm looking for the book Horton Hatches the Egg.
This Edina second grader is learning how to use a computerized card catalog to find her favorite book.
Well, I just have to put in one word and then press enter. And then I get it on my screen.
You have to put in the big word.
That you think you'd find most of. Like if I put in egg, I might get green eggs and ham.
Electronically tracking the Dr. Seuss collection is just one of many things students can now do with Edina's new integrated technology system. It's a system based on the notion that books aren't the only place where students find information.
When the Gulf War incident was closed, 30 days following that closure or the decision by the government to say that incident was over, all of the information about that was available on a CD-ROM. So that students who are doing current events can truly look at current events. We're not looking at 5-year-old information.
Deborah Anthony has a budget of $8 million to upgrade the technology in the Edina schools. Her first priority is rewiring all of the school buildings so that any room can receive television, telephone, and computer signals.
We've laid all three in the schools so that we can use all of the mediums on separate networks that we have today. Right now, video, voice, and data truly operates best on separate mediums. And so we've run 3 separate networks that can talk to each other, but they can also run separate. And in the future, if everything ends up on 1 or 2 of those, we can migrate to the 1 or 2 that are there. So it's the infrastructure that gives us that capability more than the workstations we choose now. These will come and go. And as long as we've got the right highway, hopefully it won't matter what car they build, we can run on it.
The bigger challenge will be deciding how to use the technology.
The girl's trek began here. What animals do you see? Move the animal stamps to where you see them in the picture.
I just read through a book and it had all these certain animals in it, and now I gotta try and find the same ones that are on this.
Computers have traditionally been used in schools as individual workstations for drill and practice or educational games. But these days there's a move toward using computers for communication and networking.
You know, one of the real criticisms we had on technology over the years is that it's, computers are kind of introspective devices. They separate people. You know, you can get addicted to them and you fail to relate with other people. One of the powerful advantages of networks is it makes it much easier to interconnect people and to share ideas, to share research, to share conclusions about things, to send messages to people. For teachers to let kids know how they're doing, for kids to let teachers know what some of their problems are in a confidential kind of way.
And you've done an excellent job writing this sentence. Again, we're going to save it.
At Como Elementary in St. Paul, they're using a relatively simple communications technology called Discourse. Each student has a keypad and a small display. When the teacher asks a question, all of the students respond. The answers show up on the teacher's monitor as they're typed in.
Adam, you added a word there.
The thing I like most is everyone answers every question every time. I get to see what everyone is going to respond. I get to see a response from every student every time. That's what I like the most. And I like the fact that it's very visual. And I have the monitor at my fingertips. I can show them responses. When I'm really focusing on English and language and things like that, it's very easy to see things like capital letters, punctuation, grammar, verb tense, things like that.
With Discourse, you can instantly see how well students are learning and also how well teachers are teaching.
That's just one bat.
One of the things that this technology did, which was really interesting, was teachers started saying, holy cow, I thought these kids understood this, but they don't. I can see that they don't. And then it was, okay, so what do you do now? I don't know what to do now. I can't, I mean, I thought that they were understanding it, now they're not understanding it, and what do I do about that? So it raised the awareness on our minds, and I think in their minds as well, that teaching is a very dynamic, interactive, adjusting process, but teachers many times don't have the skills to do that.
For technology to work in the schools, teachers have to understand how to use it. And that's a big hurdle in an age when children are often more comfortable with computers than adults.
The kids really have this kind of almost an innate sense of what's possible. And it is true that my generation and teachers that have been in the field for a long time don't have that and are a little bit concerned, in some cases frightened by it. Because it's not a trivial thing to do. Although computers have made it much easier, it's still something you've got to invest some learning time in.
And there is a concern by some that the value of technology is being overemphasized in schools. These Edina High students have strong opinions about when technology is appropriate and when it isn't.
I don't like dissection. If we could have, I know that there's a computer program that's got dissection where you can have the computer program, you don't have to actually dissect the thing. I think nothing dies, and it has its point, and I think that is great. But I think that going and having a TV camera follow you around in, like, in a campground in Minnesota and show us like the biome there is nothing compared to actually being there and doing it.
And there could be this descent, though, into that. I mean, if we can sit here and look at the walker on TV, isn't that going to be easier than actually going? And isn't it going to be easier to show us a picture of a river than actually taking us? And in 10 years, who's going to take you to the river when you could watch it on TV? And I think, like, as we move into the future, though, what are the people that are our age in 10 years going to do?
No one knows exactly how students will be learning 10 or 20 years from now, but it's clear that technology will almost certainly play a bigger role.
It's hard for me to imagine that in any avenue of our society that technology is going to play less of a role. So it's something that we're just going to have to wrestle with and find out, and I think we are. I think we're getting to that point.
Well, that's about all for NewsNight tonight. We hope you'll be back with us tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.
NewsNight Minnesota is made possible by the contributors to the Power of Two Campaigns Program Fund, with major grants from the Blandin Foundation and the McKnight Foundation.